And now, here's your host, Dr. Randy Tobler.
Thank you very much for that introduction. We appreciate you being with us on another edition of Healthy You this morning. It's feeling a little autumn-like, isn't it, as the weather changes and gets a little bit cooler over the evenings? Of course, I guess that means the grass is won't be brown, but it's going to be growing, which means more mowing. That rhymes.
All I can say is...
There's nothing like the smell of fresh mown grass.
That's true, but all I can say is I've just got that feeling.
I know, and when she gets this feeling, ladies and gentlemen,
feeling.
There's not
my gosh. I
all the Prozac in the world couldn't make you feel as good as she feels when fall comes along.
I don't know, I just have the feeling fall is going to happen soon, and it's just magical. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's just, I know some people think I'm crazy.
That's a generally consistent
it's not just
feeling.
Me.
Producer Elisa, are you the same way?
I don't know what it is about fall. It's just we can correct a lot of things that I did wrong over the summer personally. Usually summer
What would that be?
Well,
you want to share?
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
We're supposed to have a great time and everything's wonderful and you're supposed to get out and do all these things. Well, I just got on the scale last week and it was okay.
Did we have
It's an increase, but so what? I'm okay with it because
why did this happen?
Why did this happen? Yeah. Because I was too much into this. I've done this forever.
Well, you're learning a new role too, so stress. You've been stressed
right.
more.
I've been stressed more. I've
doing
had so much fun though. This
you've been
learning
doing some MA work in the clinic.
Right. And I have another increased level for respect for healthcare workers.
Yeah, how long have you been volunteering in the clinic now?
I don't know, it's like 3 months, I guess.
We're
June,
thankful
July, August.
for everyone that's volunteered throughout this entire pandemic to help this little hospital. As always, our auxiliary just continues to hit it out of the park. So many people that at the beginning of the pandemic and from time to time have contributed with gifts of masks and food and encouragement and you're volunteering to be an MA and I mean there's just been so much that goes on. I know Elisa does a lot of out of scope work. A lot of the staff are doing things.
I was just going to say
for the community as well.
I've got to witness firsthand the staff that goes above and beyond their pay scale. They care about the patient. They're calling them back. They're doing things that like I say, just have a whole nother level of respect for healthcare workers in general, because they go above and beyond with a lot of stress, a lot of extras like COVID right now.
Right. So it's an interesting time, and we're going to talk about stress and pandemic and weight gain.
Right.
We know that the average weight gain in America has been between 5 and 10 pounds, depending on what study you read. That's over and above the normal expected weight gain. But I think people have, on average, reported that kind of a weight gain. And there's a study out from the Journal of the American Medical Association suggesting that there's been a rapid increase in BMI, body mass index, and therefore the percentage of overweight and obese children as well. And so that's going to be a good segue.
9% increase from ages 5 to 11.
And we're going to want to talk with our guest, Mr. Ward from the school district about the whole issue of health as it relates to our children. And now it's not just the sniffle they get at school or the fever or the diarrhea or the vomiting that they get and the normal kind of things, I guess, that a nurse deals with. But, the longer term, more chronic illness inviting problems like obesity, behavioral and mental health issues through the pandemic. Obviously, COVID, the headline topic as well. So we have a lot to talk about with our special guest, Denny Ward, who is the school nurse over at Scotland County Hospital.
And we also have Carrie Mathis, the school nurse over at Clark County.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, that's good. Super good. Extra
Early
special.
Childhood Center, and she's on the line as well, and she's an RN over at Clark County School District.
Well, welcome, Carrie, from the long lines there. Hope everything's well in your world. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Mr. Ward, how's life in your world?
Oh, it's going.
So I see you have the scrubs on with the
Mickey Mouse.
The caricature of Mickey.
Yes.
Oh no, wait a minute.
No, sorry.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. There could be Minnie Mouse
Could it be Minnie too?
Couldn't it?
It
we have to be careful about this. Okay, so let's. I tell you what. Let's embark first of all on a little. A bit of beginning of school. When did school start? A couple weeks ago? When
we started a week ago Monday.
Okay. So yeah, roughly 2 weeks ago. And I want to hear from each of you how things are in terms of the general COVID status of the kids. I mean, are you seeing kids that never did show up because they have it or their parents have it, or what? Where are we going? Denny, you first.
We've had a few on quarantine and a few that have tested positive, but not the numbers that you'd expect yet. So
okay, so and the community prevalence, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, has been, it peaked about a week ago. I was doing my draft report for our board meeting at the hospital, which occurred on Tuesday, and last week we had rates as high as 7-day rolling average prevalence rates. I believe Knox County was the leader in the pack when I checked it that day. 30% at one point. I mean, it's ridiculously high. Now it's down. It's moderated a bit, and so that's good to hear. And hopefully that'll follow through as the school year's starting. It just couldn't happen at a better time. How about you, Carrie? I know Clark had quite a surge recently in the last month or so, along with the region, but I think you guys were leaders of the pack for a while too, weren't you, just in the community?
I believe so. We've had quite a few. It seems like our health department's reporting weekly, and it seems like they have an average of about 30 to 35 new cases a week.
Yeah, and it continues to affect not only children just through a diagnostic process and some of the, which we will get into, some of the modifications in schools and how kids learn and, mask, or the great controversy, do we mask, do we not mask, how do we separate, do we separate, when do we separate, the whole deal. But also families. I mean, I think children of all ages are seeing maybe grandparents dying before their time, or hearing of close friends' parents or grandparents dying, or being gravely ill on a ventilator. Maybe their teachers, maybe their staff, some of the staff that they love, community members. It's a stressful time for kids as well, and so we do want to talk about that, and we will cover all of those things when we come back. We'll take a little break and then come back and talk with our special guests, Carrie Mathis from Clark County and Denny Ward. Is it okay if I call you Denny, or do you prefer Dennis?
Denny.
We all know you as Denny. Is that all right?
That is my legal name, Denny.
It is?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. You share it's not spelled the same, but, Mark Denny is the manager of the station here. Yep. So, yeah, okay, well, good. We'll be back here on Healthy You as we roll along on this Thursday morning. Remember, if it's Thursday morning at 10 a.m., you should be tuned into KMEM, because that's where you learn health and wellness news. And now it seems like health and wellness is intersecting with sociology and policy and public health and everything. So it's not just you take an apple a day and keep the doctor away.
It's a lot of
really
layers.
Crazy what's going on. Yeah.
Any calls for Denny?
Please,
or the school nurse? 660-465-7225 and 1-800-748-7875.
Be right back around the corner. Welcome back. It's 19 after the hour. 10:19. Shall we say quasi-fall? Does it yet? Can we? No, it's still summer officially.
It's still summer, but the fall feeling's there. School's
starting, football's in the air.
That's right.
I mean, everything's happening. And Denny Ward from Scotland County Schools, the school nurse there, as well as Carrie Mathis. Tell Travis I said hi, Carrie. You'll do that, won't you?
I will, yes.
All right, please do. Good friend of ours.
And Carrie has been a nurse for 19 years. She's been a school nurse for 4. Denny Ward has been a nurse for 10 years, been a school nurse for 9.
And we do want to talk about how the nursing profession, whether you're in a hospital, a clinic, a home health nurse, or a school nurse, has really been taking it on the chin during this. I mean, everyone knows that nurses are working overtime no matter what they are because of the COVID thing. It's just been tremendously stressful. We do want to talk about the personal impact on you. But, Carrie, let me ask you first. What happens at the beginning of the year? We were talking off the air with Denny about the routines that go on, and then on top of it, you have this extra COVID thing. So what are the normal routines that you have to go through, and how is COVID layered on top of that impacting you as the school year starts?
Well, with our school nurses, we try to get our health screenings done at the beginning of the year. And, of course, COVID, Ardith Harmon is our lead school nurse, and she is actually over the one elementary school here in Cahokia, then the middle school and the high school. So she's really having to shift towards helping with the COVID and just doing like their contact tracing. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of pulling her from that. So then the other 2 school nurses, myself and Renee Kirshner, we are trying to help her as we can just to get through day to day. We haven't even been able to start our health screenings. And most of the time we like to get those, September is about the time we like to get those done. But COVID, I think, is probably going to slow us again. Yeah.
So when you're Denny, same kind of a story with you. You've got the routine screening.
Yep.
What are those? Hearing, vision? What do you do?
We do dental screening, hearing screening, vision, simple distance vision, and height and weight.
So are any of those like close up with the administrator of the test?
Well, the height and weight, you're right there at the scale.
So do you both mask?
Are
you supposed to both mask?
We're following local guidance at this point.
That was you should be a communications director for President Biden. That was a good dodge. Okay, let me ask you, Carrie, when you're doing some of these screenings that require a little closer contact, are you masking?
Well, for our K through 12, we actually, all students and all staff are currently wearing masks at all time unless we're able to social distance.
Same with you, Denny?
We don't have a mask policy in place at this point.
Different policies. Okay, so this is up to, this is not a state or federal guidance. No. They're guidelines, but not guidance.
Local guidance.
It's all local guidance. I was looking online about this.
Local rule.
Everybody gets their own.
And we did not start our school year with masks. Our school board just had an emergency meeting Sunday and voted in masks just because we were seeing our students getting quarantined because of our positivity rates.
I see.
Totally makes sense.
Have a contact in school, so this is to get our numbers, to get our quarantine numbers down, so we can have our students in class.
Well, how are you? What are the schools doing in terms of vaccination policy for staff and for students? Anyone have any mandates? Any programs to educate vigorously? What are we doing? Any encouragement, or all just freedom wins?
At our school, Artis Harmon, our nurse, she does send out regular updates with COVID and the availability of the vaccine, and we leave it up to our staff what they feel is best for them. We have no mandates on staff or students for vaccine.
Okay.
We don't have mandates either, and anytime I hear of vaccine clinics, I send the information out, and they're free to get it or do with it what they want.
Well, guess what? We just happen to have some vaccine clinic information available here with the Scotland County Health Department.
We do. So the health department actually gave us a report this morning. They're really good to do that on Thursday mornings. Great. We have 18 active cases right now. And today, the health department is over at the HUD building, and they are administering the Johnson & Johnson 1-dose vaccine today, along with Tdap. What's that?
Tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis.
Thank you, clinic. And that's over at the health department today. And so if you are ready for that 1-dose J&J vaccine, call the health department or run over to HUD today and get that vaccine today.
And weekly, we are giving first dose, or if it's appropriate, immunocompromised booster doses for those who may have solid or blood tumors or under immunosuppressive therapy, maybe for some autoimmune disease, if you're taking prednisone, the most common one, all the time for some kind of a problem. Or if you have an inborn immunodeficiency with a little bit of a weak system, that those boosters are available.
And you call us at 465-2828. That's 660-465-2828. Talk to Samantha, and she will get you scheduled for whichever dose you're ready for, your first of Moderna, your second of Moderna, or that booster.
And Scotland County Health Department at the HUD building today.
They are at the HUD building, but if you want to, if today doesn't work out for you and you're not in town, call the health department. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but 7275.
There you go.
Thank you, Nurse Denny. 465-7275, and they will get you scheduled for one of their vaccine clinics here in Scotland County.
Hey, here's a random thought. HUD. Well, we're Healthy U with a U. HUD is HUD. Maybe that's, hey, you need defense.
That's right.
Wow.
And let's call, instead of vaccine, we ought to start calling these an inoculation. Because vaccines, because of some of the news that you can get vaccinated, you've been vaccinated, but you can still have breakthrough infection, I think people often that may be skeptical or hesitant to get vaccines think, well, it doesn't work because people get infected. Well, what if we think about defining how the definition of how does a vaccine effectiveness is defined? Let's define it as preventing almost 95% plus, preventing you from getting on a ventilator in an ICU and dying. Those numbers are still holding. And so I look at it as an inoculation, a little education. We're talking with 2 school nurses today. It educates your immune system so that then when your immune system really encounters the bug, well, it may not win the battle, but it'll win the war, right?
We had an outbreak of chickenpox 4 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Really?
Yes, sir.
And they were fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
But I remember one kid had 4 spots, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So it was a milder disease, and that's what happens with breakthrough infections with the vaccine, including the latest variant that we have, the Delta variant, which is the dominant one here. Carrie, help us understand about the vaccination availability in your county to the extent you know that.
Our local health department, the Clark County Health Department, does have all 3 vaccine available by appointment. Okay. So, and they work with your schedule to be able to get you in to get that vaccine.
You know, there's been so much controversy about, mask and not mask. And, I think a lot of the messaging has been unfortunate. I think that everyone wants a black and white yes and no answer. Either I need a half-inch wrench or I need a half-inch wrench. There's no doubt about it. If the bolt is a half-inch nut, it's a half-inch wrench. Well, inoculations, vaccines, in fact, all of medicine doesn't quite work that way. And I think that it's important to know that, and disease doesn't work like a broken car where you just, I got to replace the black box because the computer said code XYZ. Often it's a multi-staged approach to combating disease, and that's where, in the right time, at the right way, if community prevalence is high, masking in the right conditions may be the right thing to do. That plus being smart about staying away from folks who were in contact and weren't vaccinated a week ago and they have a sniffle, probably not good to be and go and playing a game of bingo right across the table from that person. You got to be thinking about that. And that's why it saddens me to hear about the battles that people get entrenched and yes and no and always and never. How do you guys, let's start with you, Denny. How do you, when you have maybe a discussion with a child who may be struggling, we're going to be talking about mental health because I believe there are struggles. Kids are hearing messages from school. Carrie mentioned, that there's educational encouragement going on. You encourage it. But then they may be hearing at the dinner table or on Facebook, well, no, the vaccine's going to hurt my mom or dad. How are you dealing when you get these questions?
Luckily, I haven't had the questions on the vaccine yet from the kids. But
how about masks?
Masks, yes. We have some that are wearing them, and that is perfectly all right.
Yeah.
And I just encourage them and tell them you do what you feel you need to.
Right.
You talk with your parents about it. I said masks aren't going to hurt you.
No. Right. They're a risk reduction strategy. They are not an elimination of the disease from the planet Earth strategy, right?
We've got a few staff members that are continuing to wear their mask, and I fully support all that.
Right. Do you guys hand out N95s to your staff if they need them? Because that, of course, really does help prevent incoming germs. That's very effective.
Unfortunately, we do not have any on hand.
Oh, I see. Well, but they can get them, right? They're available. Yeah. Carrie, how about you? How are you handling those questions, either with students or staff, in terms of some of those controversies? Certainly, you and the other nurses are handling those. You're fielding those, aren't you?
Yes, we are. And actually, our biggest controversy is, since we do have the mask mandate, it would be the parents and the students who don't want their student wearing a mask. So that's why those students that do not want a mask, the school board is, we're now opening so they can do online learning instead of being in person if they really don't want the mask mandate. So as far as the vaccine, I personally have not had many vaccine questions. I've had a few vaccine questions from parents for their child, but for the most part, I've not had a whole lot of questions.
And we mentioned there's multiple ways that we can attack as a society. Individually, collectively, we can attack this disease. We've talked about vaccines. We've talked about masks. There are therapeutics if people are diagnosed, and then they can get infusions, and so forth. There's other things, right?
What about this is really tough. And I know, like, again, I've been at the hospital volunteering, and I'm working with nurses that have kids, and they have to go home and fix a meal and all the stuff of life. What do you talk about nutrition at all? Because the big problem is when there's not as much activity. You're not doing as much stuff. The kids open the refrigerator. Is there that kind of discussion with the kids?
Well, not as of yet.
Okay.
It will come to that.
Right.
And
it's tough.
It's hard.
It's a tough deal.
Even with my own kids. Yes. I mean, they know where the snacks and stuff are, and they'll come out with a handful, and I'm like, no, you one.
Right.
And I would prefer you have this one versus any of the others, but it's your choice.
Right.
Well, when we come back, we'd like to discuss this JAMA article, Journal of the AMA article that came out that said that, boy, this pandemic has really hurt kids and their problems, which have been a growing problem before pandemic, about weight. And we know that weight can later translate to diabetes earlier than we've been accustomed to seeing, heart disease, arthritic problems, cancer rates are higher among overweight folks.
Food, let's be honest, like I just said before we started talking, food is a coping mechanism too.
Well, right, and with all the stress, it's not just the kids, it's parents too. I mean, everyone. But you as school nurses obviously are often, you're not just stomping out disease, you're often encouraging wellness and to do the right thing. And you help kids, I know, take their meds on time if that's something that, right? I mean, don't you do that too? So let's talk about the role of the school nurse as a fighter in the battle against COVID and immune system enhancement. And at the same time, maybe losing some of that summer and COVID weight, which apparently, according to the studies, have happened. We'll talk about that when we come back with our guest, Denny Ward and Carrie Mathis.
But please feel free to call 660-465-7225 and 1-800-748-7875. We're talking about kids' health. And we're speaking today to Denny Ward, school nurse at Scotland County Hospital, and not Scotland County Hospital, Scotland County Schools, and Carrie Mathis in the Clark School District. And they are school nurses and doing extraordinary work in extraordinary times. And we really appreciate your in giving us insight on the kids today.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit more about, you've talked, how well are you doing? You've got, tell us the whole list of what you've got to get done first. Immunizations, you said first. What else? Give me the whole.
We've got to get the immunization compliance. And
okay.
Trying to find all those and get them in the system.
So there are vaccines that are mandated.
Mandated,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
The tetanus, diphtheria,
and people have
pertussis.
generally accepted that for years.
Yes.
Okay.
With FDA-approved mandated vaccines.
Yep.
Okay. Just saying.
And then we've got our screenings for the elementary next Thursday, so I think I've got everything in line for that.
Screening meaning hearing and vision, you said, right?
Well, the hearing will be at a later date because I have Truman come in and they screen them.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Okay.
They've done that for the past 3 or 4 years, and that's what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
And those are so important because if those senses, the sight and sound, aren't working, boy, that can really impair learning. Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of times kids don't know it. I mean, they don't know that they're mildly or moderately impaired, right? But they're just not learning.
Well, I even had a parent that I called one time, was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Just take them, get the screen, take them to the optometrist, get it done. If they don't need glasses, it was a wasted trip.
Right.
If they do, they're going to be,
really.
They have glasses to this day.
Yeah, and learning better. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, tell us about both nurses, both Carrie and Denny, about the emotional health you're going to have to deal with too. How does that all work as a school nurse of the kids?
Well,
a lot of levels
part
there.
of the problems are not the actual health. Is the tummy aches aren't gastrointestinal. It's all in your head. You've got yourself worked up, and I try to work with the counselor, and in the past it's been great. I foresee it continuing that way with our new counselor out there, Jenny Bergeson. Mm-hmm. And you just sort of have to learn each kid almost, because every kid's different. I had a parent just this morning say, "It was my fault that he was in the other day. I took the homework out of his backpack. I forgot to put it back in. He was stressed about that."
Yeah. Okay. Carrie, true or false, many of the head, heart, and tummy problems that you hear, and by heart I mean palpitations, racing, we hear that at least in the adult world, and I hear that sometimes in adolescence, and headaches, and then tummy aches. Those seem to be the three places that we see a lot of stress and anxiety directed, right?
A lot of tummy aches, which I deal mostly with preschool and special education, so I have mostly tummy aches is what I get a lot of.
Yeah.
And it's usually anxiety, or they didn't sleep well because they were anxious the night before. And
I don't know if you guys can do this legally, but we used to use a great placebo on our firstborn, our son, because he would have a tummy ache, and we found somehow, I don't know how, whether we tried it or I don't know what, but we found that just rubbing anything that comes out of a tube on his tummy would take care of the tummy ache. He's like, I need some cream on my tummy. And guess what? He went to school and it was a great day.
I do have one student that comes in here, and as long as I will let him use my stethoscope so he can hear his heart beat,
there you go.
then he is.
Isn't that cute?
Fine.
That's cute. That's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need reassurance. It's a time of uncertainty for children. We talked a little bit about some of the calamities that they may be facing, the uncertainty, the arguments they may be hearing at the family reunions, and maybe the tragedies that they're experiencing.
That's what I wanted to ask next. I'm sure maybe you haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm sure some of the kids have lost grandparents or people in their sphere from COVID. And are they getting you ready to deal with that?
Luckily, we haven't had to deal with it as of yet, but it probably is coming.
Okay.
How about you, Carrie?
We've not had a big impact that I know of that is COVID related. We've had some that have lost family members that were not, like maybe a heart attack.
I see.
Okay.
But nothing that's been COVID related that I am aware of.
So we wanted to talk about this Journal of the AMA article that came out that said that obesity rates have really risen during the pandemic, and especially, what was it,
9%, 5 to 11-year-olds.
9% increase in the prevalence of obesity.
Right.
That's right in your wheelhouse.
An
That's
average
what you
of
guys
5
do.
pounds for 5 to
so,
11 years.
and we've known that over the years, that's been a progressive problem. Is adolescent, child and adolescent, overweight and obesity. And we also know that the same things that lead to weight moderation and management lead to healthy immune systems, like fruits and veggies and everything that kids don't like, right? So what is the role of the school nurse to maybe hit two birds with one stone, help with some weight management, at the same time help their immune systems keep healthy in case they get COVID?
I try to talk with them about healthy choices of meals and that. I had one student say, well, I eat my vegetables. I eat my potatoes every meal.
And the corn.
I guess technically you can call it a vegetable, but it's a starch.
It's a starch.
It's a starch.
Yeah, I know it's a vegetable, but it functions as a starch.
Yeah. You want those green leafies.
Absolutely.
And of course, not many kids really like that. Although my picky child will eat raw spinach with ranch. So
really?
Guess what?
Great.
We can have a raw spinach salad. Let's do it. I like it too.
What kind of tips and tricks are you using, Carrie?
We actually have the extension office comes in and actually goes into classrooms and provides classroom tips. They provide
great.
education to our students, our grade school and elementary students. They actually get that education straight from them, and they do take it home. I've had my own children come home and want to try new things that they've learned through, like the yogurt.
I was going to say, give me some examples. Yes.
Yeah, like that yogurt parfait. We eat those now, and that came from. That was my my elementary student came home with that idea. But they did have here. I know at our preschool last year. She would come in even with COVID. We would try to distance the kids out, but they would make a snack, and I don't remember what she was making. They looked like little pizzas, but they were. Maybe they just had like a slice of ham for like the crust. They didn't really have a true crust on it, but they tried to educate on healthy choices for them to eat your vegetables, to get your food groups all covered, and to kind of leave the junk to the side.
It was really interesting. I've done 10 classes, and I'm not doing it now during a pandemic. But I was doing 10. I did 10 classes of six kids, and basically 4 weeks of classes. It was at our church. And the first week we learned about sanitation, easy breakfast meals. We made carrot soup. We seared a pork loin. And it was funny. You
made a zucchini pizza?
The zucchini pizzas. I want to talk about that. Zucchini pizzas. And the third class we made desserts. And the fourth class the kids fed the parents. And it was really interesting. The kids.
They brought some of that healthy.
They actually liked all of the choices they made, but then when we got to the last class, some of the parents didn't like some. They didn't. They didn't say that.
I threw away a lot of carrot soup. Let's just put it that way. But the kids, when they made it, when they were involved in it, they would eat it. And so there's some kind of secret sauce there.
There's a secret sauce
when kids are involved
in
and have some control over that seems to help. And similarly, I think parents listening there can model that kind of healthy for the immune system, if for nothing else, in this time when kids are landing in ICUs in hospitals. I know it. I've talked to the doctors that take care of them. and they can get multi-system inflammatory disease that can harm them permanently, kidneys, lung, etc. And so it's rare, but it can happen. And why not have a healthy immune system? There's other things we talk about on the program all the time, and I wanted to ask you guys about this. We had Coach Carper and Coach Pippert in, and of course, then we lost the power a few weeks ago.
That was such a bummer.
But they both were wearing their yoga tights. No, they weren't. They were talking about yoga.
My husband's kidding you.
They were talking about yoga. I'd love that'd be a visual we'd love to see. It'd be good. But we were talking about yoga among the athletes, and I thought, okay, so what are the elements of a healthy immune system and a healthy lifestyle? Right? It's nutrition, it's stress management, it's movement, exercise, and good sleep. Right? Are you emphasizing these things when you have a chance to get a kid's ear?
Yeah,
Denny.
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, if you're not healthy to begin with and you end up getting something, it's going to affect you even worse. So you've got to get your sleep. Even at my house, it's hard to say, hey, kids, it's time for bed when the sun's still shining through their window.
Yes,
It can be a struggle.
But it affects their learning too, right?
Yes.
I mean, we all know we perform better when we're feeling better, when we're healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Carrie?
We every time I get a chance, which most of the time when a child comes in not feeling well, that's the first thing I ask them is what they've had for breakfast and how well they slept the night before.
Beautiful.
Because I think a lot of kids, I mean, here at school we do provide the breakfast, and it is free this year, so every child that would want a breakfast would absolutely have it and not have to worry about the money aspect of it.
Everyone?
Every student free breakfast and lunch at Scotland.
Yep.
Wow.
That's how it is here too.
Can I enroll? No.
You just, I don't know. You might not make the age criteria.
Probably not. Well, look, and then when it comes to the exercise, I'm suggesting maybe you have Travis come in, put on the yoga pants, and do a demonstration. He'd do that,
I
wouldn't
believe he told me he's listening, so he's probably just laughing at you right now.
He's a good sport. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it either. All right. Well, that's good. I tell you what, let's go to break, and then we'll wrap it up. If you have any questions for our school nurses, Denny Ward from Scotland County Schools, or Carrie Mathis. I'm recovering from not COVID because I was swabbed. I had the lobotomy, but got one of those summer colds. And so, folks, I don't have the COVID, but it's something else. Give us a buzz. Numbers?
660-465-7225 and 1-800-748-7875.
Be right back.
And we're back with Denny Ward and Carrie Mathis, school nurses, and Clark in Scotland County. And let's talk a little bit about social media. Social media is quite a beast. It's the
right word.
It can be used in good ways, but it's really affected people in very negative ways because no news is good news. Only if it's bad news. It's something that people want to go after. So what are you saying to the kids? Is there any social media bullying even going on? In the schools?
I don't personally know of any of that going on right now.
Okay.
I believe there has been some in the past, and it's terrible because most of those kids wouldn't say that to the other child's face because they don't want to see the immediate reaction of it.
Mm-hmm.
When you post it on social media, you don't have to see any of the reaction. You don't see how it hurt them.
It encourages just hate and division, and it's tough. I guess it encouraged love too, but it's not always used that way.
Well, let's just be honest. The parents, Twitter is a crazy, nasty. People come out, they're faceless. So
Wild,
what do
wild
you expect the kids to be like if the parents are doing that?
Carrie, you doing any education or screening for social media dysfunction? I mean, we've talked with psychologists and counselors here on the air, and people who have written books, and how it can really profoundly impact a child's development in terms of their mental and behavioral development.
And in my building, I have pre-K and I have special education, so that doesn't really necessarily apply as far as my school nurse role for my particular building. But if I get called to one of the other buildings and I see it, and what I tell my own children is shut it off at night because they're not being bullied that I know of, my own children. But if you have a bully, then you can't escape them if you have social media. It's like they always have constant access to you.
Right.
With this social media. So shut it off at night, shut the phone completely off. That's how it should be. Nobody should be able to get a hold of you except for your own parents maybe. But when you're at home, you should just shut it off and relax and not worry about whatever demons may be out there for these children.
It's funny when you see a family sometimes dining out, and everyone, sometimes including mom and dad, here they are sitting within 3 feet of one another, across the table.
Sad.
And everyone's buried in their cell phone. I mean, we're losing normal socialization. And I think... Go ahead.
Got a rule at home: no computers, no phones, nothing at the dining room table.
That's good.
And somebody's usually tattling, "He's got it."
Yeah,
just say no. Yeah, I read the other day that and you'll hear different metrics here, but that because of the pandemic, and it may not be as acute in our area, but in schools that were locked down and were doing only virtual for long periods of time, that there's been a delay in learning. I mean, kids are maybe a grade or half a grade behind. Have we seen any of that in our area?
I have not seen.
When you
that
talk
or
to your
heard of
teacher
it
friends
here
there, no,
yet.
good.
But I hope it didn't. Luckily, we were only shut down there from March to the end of school, and that was the virtual. All we had to do.
Okay, Carrie.
Our teachers have tried hard to try to. I mean, I think that March, that was a whole quarter for us.
Yeah.
That end of, not the past school year, but the year before. So our teachers worked hard all of last year offering tutoring, trying to get students caught back up, because unfortunately it did affect some.
I think of the great parents as first teachers, which is for very, very young children and toddlers and so forth. And now parents were asked to become parents as older kids teachers, second and third teachers, right?
Tough.
It put a stress on families. This has just been an incredibly, from so many directions, stressful time for families. And kids are intuitive. I mean, kids are, in a way, they're like horses. They know when things are off kilter. You know what I mean? They're very intuitive.
Yes.
And it's really been difficult for teachers, I know, and school administrators, and to navigate this, certainly parents. And you guys, I have a feeling that you're going to be feeling some long-term effects of this and seeing more and more, sometimes nuanced, sometimes not so nuanced, behavioral health issues. You deal with that anyway, don't you?
Yeah, it's a daily basis.
Do you have referral sources?
Yes, we do. I believe we have Mark Twain and Preferred Family.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Carrie, you too?
They're the same two that we have. And our counselors there, I just talked to one the other day that I know her caseload is just really high right now.
Yes.
And she can even take on more. I know they've hired.
What kind of things are you hearing them dealing with?
I think, for me personally, what I hear is mostly like anxiety type.
Okay.
Yeah. That goes back to that tummy ache issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just not doing well and tearful.
Oh, boy. Yeah. They take a lot of consoling. And now we can't even give them a hug, right? You can't give them a hug. That's sort of like... I'm seeing that. Danny doesn't give him a hug. That's okay, but I think he may from now and then. I don't want to...
You try not to, because you should show them,
I know.
social distance, but kids... I read one time that kids need 6 positive touches a day.
Yep.
Yes.
A high five, a pat on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about how politically incorrect it is these days to have any human physical contact, And I'm glad to hear that we're here in Northeast Missouri. I haven't asked you, Carrie, but I can see you winking at us over the phone lines. Here in Northeast Missouri, we have our compass straight, and we know what is proper and moral and all good. And you guys...
What's very important.
You bet. It is. But you know what I mean? It's if a male teacher gives a female student a hug, somehow it's been turned into some kind of incredible, by default, abusive situation. It's like, hello, what are we doing here? Well, I'm really proud of the work you're doing and thankful for the work you're doing. I know how hard it is to be a healthcare provider of any type these days, much less with children dealing with all the struggles we've outlined during this hour. And I hope you guys are able to find some peace and joy this weekend to get a little R&R.
We want to give you and all school nurses and all nurses a big virtual hug today.
Yeah. Are you guys reading about some burnout in your profession, like in the healthcare profession in general?
Yeah. I was just reading before I came on a email thread about a nurse that's possibly going to retire a year earlier. She was going to retire at the end of the school year, but she's thinking about trying to buy out the end of the year and retire this year.
And folks, you're not listening to people that are, Elon Musk ready to build a new SpaceX because of all the riches that are bestowed on them by salaries.
They go above and beyond.
Nurses do it because of passion and love of the profession and love of the kids that they're taking care of. And so if you see a nurse, if you see Denny or Carrie or anyone sort of hanging out in the community, I don't think they would reject a hug. I don't know. I think you can, or give them a virtual hug, because they're certainly doing some very heavy lifting. Carrie, Denny, thank you very, very much for being with us. We appreciate all you're doing.
Truly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps it up for this edition of Healthy University. That's Healthy U. Again, if you're interested in a vaccine, the health department is out at the HUD facility today, and you can call them at 7275.
Shout out to Megan Weber and the PT department of Scotland County Hospital. The antique fair had 40 kids.
Really?
40 kids were in that.
That's great. Boy, don't they inspire.
Yes.
Oh, how long is the pool? Are the aerobics classes done now? We're all done. Today's the last day. Okay. Can I put on my swimsuit and go over there yet, or no? What time?
Sorry, you're done.
10:45. Well, maybe there's time. Rush over there. Do it. Hey, thanks for being with us this time. Stay safe and be common sense about your COVID management, okay? Talk to you next week.